Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to take a look at the May Smart Art box. And if you don't know what Smart Art is, it is a monthly subscription box that sends you supplies for one specific topic every month. You can learn more at smartartbox.com. And I was really excited about this box, but not because of the topic, more about the supplies. So this comes with some calligraphy nibs, which you can also use for drawing. I use them for drawing because I'm not very good at calligraphy. You get some artist trading cards, which I've been really into lately, and I was really excited to see all of these jars of Perlex. There's 9 different jars of Perlex, and if you've ever used that before, you know how it can be kind of a pricey supply. This is a mica powder, and like if you do any stamping, like with clear Versamark ink, you can dust this over top, and it just looks so gorgeous and bright and shiny, and it's just so fun to use. And the neat thing is they actually put in 3 jars of gum arabic powder, so you could mix this up with the dry Perlex, and then when you dust it over your paper, it will set. So the gum arabic's kind of like a glue. It also gives you some jars so that you can mix up some watercolors, because gum arabic is the binder in watercolor, and you can make your own metallic watercolors. And there was also a Chinese brush if you want to do some Chinese calligraphy. But I figured it would be fun to use this box to make a artist trading card booklet. So what I'm doing here is using the lid of the box and some of this white cardboard to make my the cover and the spine for my little artist trading card booklet. I decided to go ahead and just trace out this artist trading card a couple times to make sure I had it I had my cover big enough, and then I'm just using my craft knife and metal ruler to cut out those pieces. Now I'm going to cut them out a little bit larger than I need them, about 1/4 of an inch larger than I'm going to want them, just to give me a little wiggle room and make sure that my artist trading cards I put in there don't get dented. So this will be kind of fun for me to bring with me. I can work inside the book, and then if I want to trade, I can remove the cards to trade. So theoretically, that's how I'm going to use this. I'm going to a stamp show in a couple of weeks, and I want to trade some artist trading cards. Hopefully there'll be people to trade with, because I've always wanted to do that. So I'm cutting out the 2 covers just a little bit bigger, about 1/4 of an inch bigger than an artist trading card, and one spine that is as wide as my cover and 1 inch wide, or it's as tall as my cover and 1 inch wide. So you can kind of see how it's going to lay out like that. So now I've just got some craft paper. You could use a old brown shopping bag, would work perfectly for this. It's the same stuff. I have it by the roll because I use it for my wrapping paper and workspace covering, all sorts of things. So it's kind of handy. And then I'm just wetting the paper with clear water. This is going to give it a really fun texture. So scrunch it up really good. This was a project that I actually learned in 1st grade. They had us do, we were studying Native Americans, and we made some faux leather, and we did it with paper bags, and I always loved that technique. I always thought it was magic when I was a kid, and so I use it every once in a while as an adult. I wanted to give it a little color, so I'm just taking a dye-based ink pad and rubbing over the paper to kind of grab all of that texture. And I just think it gives that a really nice look. It really helps define that. Now I'm just using the end of a paintbrush to put a little scoop of Pearl X in like the lavender color, and a scoop of the, there's kind of like a rosy pinkish gold color in each of the jars. I'm just going to make up enough watercolor to add to this cover. I don't want to do too much. I found in the past when I've used the gum arabic powder to mix in with pigments, if I leave it liquid too long, it will mold. So if you're going to do that and make your own watercolors, I highly recommend you let them dry out so they don't mold. I don't know what it is about the liquid, the gum arabic powder versus the liquid, but it does tend to mold a little easier than the liquid counterparts. Not sure why. That's just what I've had my experience in the past. So you need about 1/4 of the amount of binder to the pigment, and then I'm just giving it a couple sprays of water to make it liquid. You don't need much water, and you don't need much pigment. Perlex is extremely shiny and opaque, so it's going to cover up actually a lot of that purple ink I put down. See how opaque that is? I was kind of like, oh, I wanted more ink to show through. But don't worry, we can put some more ink on later. So basically, I am just giving this a good old coat of color. I'm using up all of it because, like I said, I don't want to store the liquid paint, and I have plenty of metallic watercolors. You could use metallic watercolors if you want to. I just want to give this a nice, beautiful finish. We're going to have kind of like a leathery, shimmery material when we're all done. I just love how opaque and gorgeously shiny Pearl X is. It's one of my favorite medias, and I've used it for probably about 15 years or maybe even longer. So it's a wonderful stash. I'm so glad that Smart Art Box put that in the box today. So at this point, you just want to let this dry. You can either air dry it. I do recommend kind of wiping up any puddles that are under the paper, maybe blotting some of the excess moisture off the backside to help it a little bit. Or you can do what I do, which is use a heat tool. Now, my cutting mat was underneath this Teflon mat. I moved it because your heat tool can warp any cutting mat, so keep that in mind. But that plain old Teflon mat is great. Now I did decide to take my ink pad again and go over the paper to get those wrinkly ridges. Now some of the mica powder did get on my ink pad. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I did wipe it off on a scrap of paper just to remove any excess mica from the ink pad, but that can happen. So I would only do it with an old ink pad you're not too worried about. And there is that. So now that this is dry, I'm lining up my cover pieces here, and I'm just kind of figuring out how I want it to go. I want to have about an even border all the way around and about eighth to a quarter of an inch in between the pieces. I'm using glossy Mod Podge for my adhesive and also for a protective covering on the outside, because even though gum arabic is a binder, it's not really a very robust sealant, so I want to make sure I have like that protection on the outside in case my journal gets wet. I'm not going to have like mica and watercolor on my fingers or anything. So after you've got a coat of glue there, just kind of press your cover pieces down. Now I forgot to cut the corners off, and I should have done that before I added glue, so I'm very gingerly scoring the paper. I'm not cutting through the paper because I don't want to ruin the mat that I have underneath with an X-Acto knife. I'm just scoring it so I can rip that off. So highly recommend you do this before you add glue. I just forgot about it. But save those pieces because we'll use that to patch up some of the center parts of our little cover here. So yeah, just kind of fold it over like you're wrapping a present. Try to smooth out really well so there's no gaps or puckers, and make sure everything is glued down well. You don't want any like edges sticking up or, just not glued down, because they'll catch and they'll get kind of tattered. So you just want to make sure you have a really nice a nice smooth finish here. It looks so pretty, and this is just cardboard. You can make this any size you want for any sort of journal you want, really. It just looks so pretty, don't you think? I just love that little bit of shimmer. It's got a little bit of almost like a Mardi Gras feel to it. Love it. And then just to patch those little places that you can still see there, I'm just using the leftover pieces I cut off, because why not? They're right there. They're already done. You could use a little liner paper if you wanted to, pattern paper or whatever you have, but I figured I got enough right there. I'm just going to use that. So now for the signature, which is the part that holds the little pages, which are going to be artist trading cards, I took one artist trading card from the Smart Art box and I scored it every half inch, but I started on a 1/4 inch and then scored every like half on. So I scored on the 1/4 and the 3/4 mark. And that's going to give me, I think that's going to give me like 7 little flags for pages. And after I folded it, I simply took some scissors and I cut in between each of the scores. So I'll have like a little angle, basically. When I fold them up, there'll be little angles. And so half of the angle will glue to the signature and half of the angle will glue to the page. I hope this makes sense. So this is, I think it's called like a tab binding, maybe. If you have a binding method you prefer, go ahead and use that method. This just seemed like it would be the most efficient way to bind individual cards. You could also do a washi tape binding, which I've shown in past videos. You can look that up. I'll try to remember to link it in the iCard or down below so you can find that tutorial, because the nice thing about the washi binding is that it would be really easy to take apart, because often my washi binding will come apart before I want it to. So I didn't want this to fall apart, so I thought this would be a better solution. And I'm using score tape to hold down these little tabs. And these little tabs are going to go in the book on the spine. Now I made sure this little piece I'm gluing to is 1 inch wide, and I cut it a little bit bigger and just folded up those little edges so it would be 1 inch once it was all done, and that's going to hold all those pages in there. And the nice thing, if I want to put a bunch of decorations on it, then the book's going to be wide enough to accommodate any like collage or assemblage or doodads, things that I add onto the pages, which is really nice. Or if I get the pages really like heavily mixed mediaed and they get a little warped or something, it'll still contain those pages within the book. So that's what I was thinking. That's why I have the spine so wide. Now, sorry, I'm a little out of camera there, but I was basically just putting a little bit of adhesive right on the edge of that page and pressing it up against the tab that's going to glue to the spine. I hope that makes sense. I think it should make pretty much sense, because it's basically about the only way you could attach those little pages in there on the tab method. See how you got them in there? And see, we're going to put that right in there and just press it onto the tab right next to it. And repeat that for every page that you want to put in there. All right. Now, I'm using score tape like I mentioned because that's really strong, but I'm going to want something a little bit stronger when I go to attach this onto the spine itself. And I also want to add a ribbon closure. So for the ribbon, it's super easy. I just took some hand-dyed seam binding and I'm going to wrap that around the spine of the book and tie it in a knot. And that way I can wrap that around the book to tie it shut later. I could even tuck a pen in there if I wanted to. So I like that closure. It's simple and I think it's pretty elegant. And then to hold the signature on top of the spine there, I'm going to use hot glue, because hot glue is going to seep through that ribbon just fine. It's going to marry any uneven surfaces, and it doesn't take a lot of pressure to be able to push that in there and make it adhere really well. So I really like that when I've got something that I've got to go over multiple surfaces and textures and medias and glue them together. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a nice simple book that anybody can make. You can use stuff you have around the house, or you can use the contents of the Smart Art box if you got this month's box, which has a lovely calligraphy project on the back page of the brochure. But I didn't want to do a calligraphy tutorial because, quite frankly, I'm not someone who does calligraphy. Sometimes I can do a nice sentiment on a card or a title on a scrapbook page, but I'm really not a calligraphy person, so I didn't feel like I could really do a tutorial on that and make it worth anybody's time to watch. But there you can see it all closed up with a bow. I think it's lovely. You can also use this for a scrapbook. You could put a photo on each page, especially if you have one of those Instax cameras. That would be so cute to put a photo on each page. There's just so many things you can use a little book like this for. If you would like to get surprise art supplies delivered to your door every month, check out our sponsor, smartartbox.com. They have subscription packages and past boxes too, if you want to kind of see what you're getting before you buy. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.